Adam Smasher holds a singular, almost mythic place in the Cyberpunk universe. Arasaka Corporation's ultimate enforcer, a full-body conversion cyborg whose 96% chrome frame and unrelenting sadism have made him Night City's most feared and enduring legend. First conceptualized by writer Benjamin Wright in Art Alsorian Games' Cyberpunk 2020 supplement, Solar Fortune 2 in 1994, the character was refined under Mike Pondsmith's oversight through the Firestorm campaign books. He persists across the anime Cyberpunk Edgerunners and the video game Cyberpunk 2077. Wright's original vision was not a mindless berserker, but a high-functioning sociopath, a man whose cyberware became the perfect extension of pre-existing psychopathy, amplifying rather than creating his capacity for calculated violence. This discussion, the most exhaustive examination available, reconstructs Smasher's complete chronology from his pre-chrome origins in late 20th century New York to his climactic role in the 2077 assault on Arasaka Tower. I dissect his psychological profile, pivotal conflicts across decades, persistent narrative discrepancies between tabletop canon and digital interpretations, and the unresolved enigmas surrounding his potential persistence through Arasaka's soul killer-derived engram technology. At its core, the analysis advances a central thesis. Smasher exemplifies Cyberpunk's defining dialectic between humanity and chrome. A high-functioning cyberpsycho, as Pondsmith himself terms it, whose role as Arasaka's sanctioned executioner, channels innate sociopathic impulses into a uniquely resilient form of controlled violence. Unlike the rampaging cyberpsychos hunted by MaxTac, victims of augmentation overwhelming fragile psyches, Smasher's pathology predates his chrome. His implants do not erode his humanity. They weaponize what little remained. This distinction not only explains his survival through nukes, corporate wars, and Edgerunner assaults, but also illuminates why V's relic-fueled fusion with Johnny Silverhand enables an improbable victory in 2077. A temporary mimicry of Smasher's pre-existing mental fortitude. The very sociopathy that lets him wield 96% chrome without breaking. By the end, viewers will possess the complete framework for understanding Adam Smasher. Not the memified final boss of 2077, or the unstoppable force of Edgerunners, but the layered, meticulously crafted enigma Pondsmith and Wright forged across 3 decades of cyberpunk evolution. Adam Smasher's human life begins in the decaying urban sprawl of late 20th century New York City, a metropolis already fracturing under economic collapse, gang warfare, and the creeping encroachment of corporate power. Born into this environment, exact date unrecorded in canon, he rises as what Mike Pondsmith describes as a fairly typical punk. the leader of a nameless street gang operating from derelict warehouses and abandoned industrial zones in the outer boroughs. In the Cyberpunk 2020 setting, such crews are disposable, expendable pawns in the larger game of survival. Smasher's gang meets the expected end, obliterated in routine turf violence. He survives, alone, carrying the lesson that survival demands ruthlessness and that human bonds are liabilities. This early period already reveals the core traits that define him. Leadership of a gang requires charisma and intimidation, but Smasher's style leans heavily towards the latter. There is no evidence of loyalty, camaraderie, or moral restraint, only the pragmatic use of violence to maintain power. The gang's destruction does not break him, it hardens him. The loss of his crew is not mourned as a personal tragedy, but processed as a tactical failure, a lesson in the disposability of others. Faced with annihilation on the streets, Smasher enlists in the United States Army during the escalating Central American conflicts of the early 2020s. Proxy wars that foreshadow the Fourth Corporate War. These campaigns involved brutal urban and jungle operations against insurgent forces backed by corporate interests. Smasher excels in this environment. His capacity for violence finds structure and sanction. Excessive brutality during missions, killing beyond necessity, disregarding civilian life, earns him a dishonorable discharge. Pondsmith notes this period as formative. The army provided Smasher with the first institutional outlet for his impulses, violence not as crime, but as duty. The dishonorable discharge does not represent a moral failing in his eyes. It represents the system's inability to accommodate his level of aggression. The experience reinforces the lesson from the streets. Authority is temporary, loyalty is conditional, and survival belongs to the ruthless. Discharged and unmoored, Smasher pivots to freelance solo work along the eastern seaboard. In the Cyberpunk 2020 ecosystem, where solos are elite gun-for-hire operatives, he quickly builds a fearsome reputation. Contracts explicitly specify collateral damage and civilian casualties as standard terms, a clause that reflects both client expectations and Smasher's own inclinations. He does not merely complete jobs, he completes them with gratuitous brutality, leaving unmistakable signatures. Manual strangulation followed by point-blank hollow-point skull shots. This period solidifies Smasher's operational style and psychological profile. He operates alone, no crew, no attachments, because others are liabilities. His reputation grows not from finesse, but from terror. Clients hire him when they want a problem erased permanently and messily. Early augmentations follow. Basic cyberarms for enhanced strength. Korenzakov neural processors for combat reflexes. Subdermal armor plating. But these are tools, not transformations. The core pathology remains unchanged. A sociopath who views humans as obstacles or targets, not as fellow beings deserving of empathy. Pondsmith's assessment is unequivocal. Smasher's pre-augmentation empathy stat is, yeah right, absolute 0. In Cyberpunk 2020 mechanics, EMP begins at 10 for a typical human, and decreases with Chrome. Smasher starts at 0. This is not hyperbole, it is diagnostic. He exhibits no meaningful remorse, no loyalty beyond self-interest, no hesitation in inflicting pain. The army discharge, the freelance contracts, the willingness to accept collateral damage clauses, all point to the same conclusion. Smasher's sociopathy is innate, not acquired. This baseline is critical to understanding his later high-functioning status. Most cyberpsychos are victims of augmentation, ordinary people pushed beyond their limits by Chrome. Smasher is the inverse, an already broken mind given tools to express its breakage more efficiently. His Chrome does not erode his humanity, it equips the monster already present. The mid-2020s marked the irreversible turning point in Adam Smasher's existence, his acquisition by Arasaka Corporation, and the completion of his transformation into a full-body conversion cyborg. This period bridges his earlier life as an Eastern Seaboard freelance solo and his emergence as the corporation's apex predator. It is not merely a technological upgrade. It is the moment Cyberpunk's central dialectic crystallizes. Chrome as both liberator and annihilator of the human condition. Smasher's recruitment occurs against the backdrop of escalating proxy skirmishes between Militech and Arasaka. As a high-risk freelancer known for accepting contracts that explicitly include collateral damage and civilian casualties, he draws Arasaka's attention during a near-fatal operation described in Solar Fortune 2. Critically wounded and facing death, Smasher receives an ultimatum from Arasaka operatives: reconstruction or oblivion. He chooses the former, becoming one of the earliest subjects of the corporation's full-body conversion program. A procedure that pioneers the Samson frame prototype, Arasaka's bespoke design for overwhelming physical dominance. The resulting configuration, later quantified in Firestorm Shockwave, leaves Smasher 96% Chrome. His Samson heavy assault frame integrates shoulder-mounted missile pods loaded with fragmentation, incendiary, and EMP warheads. Korenzakov neural boosterware for near-instantaneous reflexes. Gyro stabilizers for perfect balance under fire, and custom high-end optics capable of thermal imaging, low-light enhancement, and targeting overlays. Only 4% meat remains, the brain biopod housed in an armored cranial vault, and a rudimentary digestive tract. A detail Pondsmith includes as wry humor, allowing Smasher to indulge in junk food and anime marathons without nutritional consequence. This transformation is not the origin of Smasher's monstrous nature. It is its amplification. His pre-Chrome sociopathy absolute zero empathy, disregard for human life, willingness to accept collateral damage as standard remains unchanged. The chrome does not erode his humanity, it equips the monster already present. In the mechanics of Cyberpunk 2020, Smasher accrues no meaningful humanity loss penalty from his conversion. His baseline was already forfeit. This distinction foreshadows his later status as a high-functioning cyberpsycho. Impulses not created by augmentation, but channeled through it. By the end of this period, Smasher's no longer a mercenary. He is Arasaka's living weapon, a corporate asset whose loyalty is absolute and whose lethality is unmatched. The mid-2020s do not change who Smasher is. They give him the tools to become what he was always meant to be. The Fourth Corporate War did not begin with a single declaration or a dramatic battle. It was the inevitable outcome of nearly 5 years of escalating proxy conflicts, technological theft, economic sabotage, and irreconcilable visions of global dominance between Militech and Arasaka. By early 2023, the two corporations had reached a point of existential confrontation where coexistence was no longer possible. Militech, under Donald Lundy's aggressive leadership, sought to dominate the global arms, cyberware, and security markets through sheer industrial scale and military-grade innovation. Arasaka, under Saburo Arasaka's iron control, aimed to preserve its proprietary technological supremacy and enforce a Japan-centric world order in which corporations, not nation-states, defined the future. The Soul Killer program, Alt Cunningham's revolutionary engram technology, became the single most valuable prize in this struggle. Saburo Arasaka entrusted the defense of Arasaka Tower, the corporation's Night City headquarters, and the physical location of the Soul Killer Research Lab to Adam Smasher. His full-body conversion, the Samson frame prototype, made him ideal for close-quarters defense in a vertical fortress. Pondsmith describes this assignment as Smasher's proving ground. Arasaka was testing whether Full-Borg technology could produce an enforcer capable of holding an entire skyscraper against a determined Militech-backed assault. Smasher was also fully compatible with the Arasaka DaiOni-powered armor, a 1,120 kilogram monstrosity described as making a Borg feel like a god among Borgs. Though the primary defense relied on his Samson frame. The assault on Arasaka Tower was not the work of a lone rocker boy or a ragtag group of Edgerunners. It was a meticulously planned operation executed by a small, elite strike team that Johnny Silverhand assembled with the explicit goal of extracting Alt Cunningham's engram from the Soul Killer program and exposing Arasaka's crimes to the world. Designated Team Alpha in Militech operational logs, and later referred to as such in Firestorm Shockwave, this group represented a rare convergence of talent, motivation, and desperation, each member bringing a unique skill set, personal stake, and deep-seated grudge against Arasaka. The team was deliberately small to maximize stealth and minimize exposure. It consisted of 4 core operatives, each handpicked by Silverhand for their proven capabilities and willingness to risk everything against the corporation that had shaped, and in some cases destroyed, their lives. Rogue Armendariz was the operational backbone of Team Alpha, the fixer who turned Silverhand's vendetta into a feasible plan. A former lover of Silverhand from his samurai days, Rogue had already established herself as a Night City legend. Her network secured entry routes and coordinated extraction. Shaitan was the stealth and close-quarters combat specialist, a full-body conversion cyborg whose hatred for Arasaka was absolute. Persistent lore in Firestorm Shockwave and Pondsmith's interviews states that Shaitan's mother, or other close female relative, was violated by a member of the Arasaka family during the corporation's early expansion into North America. Whether literal or symbolic, Shaitan's animosity drove him to rebuild himself as a weapon for revenge. In the tabletop era, he was considered one of the best Edgerunners in Night City, a Full-Borg specializing in optical camouflage, stealth, infiltration, and close-quarters lethality. Silverhand recruited him with a single holocall. The appeal was simple: one chance to strike at the heart of Arasaka Tower. Shaitan accepted immediately. Spider Murphy was the netrunner and technical specialist, the one who would breach Arasaka's electronic defenses and disable countermeasures. A veteran of the net wars, she believed in cyberspace as a free space. Soulkiller represented corporate encroachment. Lyle Thompson was the journalist and evidence recorder, a war correspondent known for his thin, reedy frame and oversized trench coats. A close friend of Silverhand since the Central American conflicts, where he saved Johnny's life multiple times. Thompson shared his hatred for Arasaka, whom he suspected of murdering his wife. He documented the raid for global exposure, proof of Soulkiller as the story of the century. The confrontation between Adam Smasher and Shaitan in the Soulkiller lab is one of the most brutal and symbolically loaded moments in the entire cyberpunk canon. It is not merely a duel between 2 full-body conversions. It is the clash of 2 extremes of the cybernetic condition. Smasher, the willing instrument of corporate power whose chrome amplifies innate sociopathy, and Shaitan, the self-reconstructed avenger whose augmentation is an act of vengeance against the very corporation Smasher serves. The engagement reveals Smasher's combat philosophy, overwhelming force combined with psychological cruelty. He does not merely kill, he humiliates. The biopod rip is not necessary for victory. Shaitan was already defeated, but it serves a dual purpose: demoralize the remaining team and send a message to Blackhand. The taunt is personal. Smasher knows Blackhand's meat over metal code, and he mocks it by using a fellow Full-Borg's core as a shield. Canonically, Shaitan survives the duel and nuke. Barely. A Firestorm Shockwave notes his biopod is recovered by Rogue and Spider Murphy during extraction. He is later seen assisting in the assassination of Kei Arasaka. The duel also foreshadows Smasher's resilience. He takes sustained damage from Shaitan, yet continues without impairment. A testament to the Samson frame's redundancy and Arasaka engineering. This endurance sets the stage for his survival of the nuke minutes later. The rooftop duel between Adam Smasher and Morgan Blackhand on the night of August 20, 2023, stands as one of the most iconic and symbolically charged confrontations in the cyberpunk canon. It is not merely a physical clash between two legendary solos. It is the culmination of years of ideological and personal antagonism. Chrome supremacy versus meat resilience. Corporate tool versus independent operator. Calculated cruelty versus disciplined fury. As Morgan's group begins its evacuation after taking out the rooftop laser, Adam Smasher, in the DaiOni battlesuit, confronts him on the roof. Threatening to destroy Shaitan's biopod, Smasher forces Blackhand into a one-on-one combat on the rooftops of the tower. A running gunfight as Blackhand tries to get Smasher to drop the pod so he can scoop it up, and Smasher tries to get Blackhand to sit long enough to be squashed. What the? Morgan snaps around and down in a roll out of the AV's open hatch, the heavy assault rifle cradled in his arms. Oh damn, Adam! And what the hell is he wearing? One of the massive arms of the power frame Adam is wearing waves a jaunty hello, the biopod clutched in it, shaking about like a child's toy. Oh, I'm sorry. You probably don't recognize him from this angle, but this is your friend, Shaitan. Or what's left of him. I'm afraid Silverhand's in even worse shape. At least the Borg's still alive in here. I'd give him another good 10 minutes before the pod's battery dies. But to get him, you're going to have to get me. Morgan turns to the AV. Get the hell out of here, now! Chief, we ain't leaving you here. You sure as hell are. You have to make sure Spider and the others get out. Now go! I'll be along in a minute. He watches the AV lift off, then turns back around. Cocking the rifle, he intones. All right, Pipsqueak. Time to see if metal really is better than meat. Let's dance. As the building begins to shake from the detonation of a nuke in the basement, the two, from opposite roofs of the tower, launch themselves at each other in a last, desperate attempt to kill their nemesis. The detonation of Militech's 1 kiloton tactical nuclear device in the basement of Arasaka Tower on August 20, 2023, marked not only the climax of the Fourth Corporate War, but also the single most catastrophic event in Night City's history. An act of corporate warfare that left the city irradiated. Arasaka exiled from the United States, and Adam Smasher as the last surviving symbol of Arasaka's defiance. The DaiOni battlesuit provided Smasher's biopod significantly more protection than normal, contributing to his survival. The ambiguity is intentional. Blackhand represents the meat over metal philosophy, the last great human solo, while Smasher embodies Chrome supremacy. Leaving Blackhand's fate open preserves the rivalry as an eternal tension. Smasher believes he won. The world is left to wonder. The Holocaust marks the end of the war's active phase, and the beginning of Smasher's long-term role as Arasaka's enforcer in a crippled Night City. With the tower destroyed and Arasaka exiled, Smasher relocates to the Ebunike docks, a fortified facility that becomes his base of operations for the next 50 years. The war's end does not diminish his legend, it immortalizes it. Smasher walks away from Ground Zero, Chrome scorched, but intact, the last surviving symbol of Arasaka's defiance. The period following the Fourth Corporate War represents a rare interregnum in Adam Smasher's existence, a phase of relative stability within Arasaka's fractured hierarchy, with Night City devastated by Militech's tactical nuke, and Arasaka effectively persona non grata in the United States. Saburo Arasaka's empire splinters. Yet, Smasher remains one of its most reliable assets. This chapter examines the two defining elements of Smasher's interwar years: his relationship with Michiko Arasaka, and his role as an internal security operative within the corporation's North American remnants. Michiko Arasaka, born to Kei Arasaka and an unnamed mother, was deliberately sheltered from the family's darker machinations. At 17, during the war's climax, she witnessed the nuclear destruction of Night City from afar, an event that left Arasaka accused of mass murder and barred from US operations. Facing a potential deportation to Japan, Michiko traveled to Washington, D.C. to personally petition President Elizabeth Kress for continued American citizenship. Details of that meeting remain classified, but Michiko was granted permission to remain and subsequently enrolled in criminology at Stanford University. After graduation, she established Danger Girl, a private security firm that serves as a front for US government-directed espionage against Arasaka itself. Operating under Kress's directives, Danger Girl conducts surveillance, sabotage, and counterintelligence operations targeting Arasaka's remaining North American assets. Michiko's public persona is that of a glamorous socialite, frequenting high-profile events in Hollywood and Europe, while her private life involves navigating the dangerous intersection of family loyalty and covert service to American interests. Smasher enters this picture in the late 2020s. Despite his grotesque appearance and reputation, he begins a romantic relationship with Michiko, using alternate bodies, most notably a blonde Elvis persona, to avoid causing offense or drawing undue attention. The relationship is complex and ultimately doomed. While that storyline was never published, the dynamic underscores Smasher's isolation. Even in intimacy, he requires artificial facades to function. The relationship ends sometime before the 2070s, leaving Smasher without significant personal attachments. Michiko later marries Detective Mark Sanderson, further distancing herself from Arasaka's orbit. With Arasaka's US operations curtailed post-war, Smasher is reassigned to internal security duties in Night City's remnants. His primary base becomes the Ebunike dockyards, a fortified Arasaka facility used for black market dealings, storage, and occasional interrogations. Grayson, a trusted subordinate, oversees day-to-day operations, while Smasher maintains a personal armory containing Silverhand's recovered Mallory Arms pistol and Porsche 911 Turbo. During this period, Smasher engages in corporate blackmail and intimidation on Arasaka's behalf. A notable case involves Anthony Gilchrist, a Militech executive blackmailed by Smasher. Smasher kidnapped Gilchrist's associate, Mallory, forcing him to sabotage a Militech-Night Corp deal by leaking convoy intel to Maelstrom. This operation is uncovered by V and Rogue during their raid on Ebunike, revealing Smasher's continued role in Arasaka's shadow war against Militech. Smasher's signature execution style emerges consistently in the lore. Manual strangulation followed by point-blank hollow-point skull shots. A method designed to maximize terror and leave unmistakable calling cards. This brutality, combined with his near-total chrome composition, reinforces his reputation as a corporate boogeyman who operates beyond conventional morality. The events of 2076, as depicted in the anime Cyberpunk Edgerunners, represents the next major chapter in Adam Smasher's canonical history after the Fourth Corporate War. While the anime is a standalone adaptation, it is fully consistent with the established tabletop lore and expands Smasher's role from corporate enforcer to a terrifying symbol of Arasaka's unrelenting power. By 2076, Arasaka had largely recovered from the exile imposed after the Fourth Corporate War. Under Yorinobu Arasaka's leadership, the corporation re-established a strong presence in Night City, focusing on security contracts, cyberware development, and internal power consolidation. Adam Smasher, having survived the tower nuke and the subsequent decades, remained one of Arasaka's most trusted assets. His Samson frame had been upgraded and maintained over the years, but his core role had not changed. He was the corporation's ultimate problem solver, deployed when subtlety was no longer an option. Smasher's reputation by this era was legendary, as illustrated in a conversation between David Martinez and his Ripper Doc, Doc. When David boasts about his affinity for cyberware, Doc warns him, "Makes you Adam Smasher 2.0, Choom." David asks, "Adam who?" Doc replies, "Christ, all this time and you're still a fucking noob. Adam Smasher, name to know. To some, a hero of the Fourth Corporate War. To others, a fully borged boogeyman, a walking nightmare. But to all, a living legend, a skinny one." David presses, "What kind of legend?" Doc answers, "The kind that fills graveyards on Arasaka's orders." The remaining Edgerunners crew David Martinez, Lucy Kushinada, Rebecca, and Falco became a target when they stole an experimental Arasaka cyberskeleton prototype during a high-stakes heist. The skeleton was Arasaka's next-generation full-conversion system, and they needed a test subject with exceptional cyberware tolerance to gather combat data. Arasaka had been monitoring David since his early Sandevistan use. No immediate psychosis, making him the ideal candidate. Faraday's scheme: set up the perfect test, pit David against Militech forces to evaluate the skeleton's performance. Smasher arrives at Arasaka Tower for the final confrontation, a deliberate echo of the 2023 raid, reinforcing his role as the corporation's eternal guardian. David Martinez, now heavily chromed and on the edge of cyberpsychosis, confronts Smasher inside Arasaka Tower. The fight is a brutal showcase of mismatched power levels. David's advantages include his experimental Sandevistan for time dilation, the cyberskeleton for enhanced strength and durability, and crew support from Lucy, Falco, and Rebecca. Smasher's advantages are overwhelming: full-Borg resilience, missile pods, a superior Sandevistan, decades of combat experience, and complete lack of empathy or hesitation. The engagement begins with David rushing Smasher using his Sandevistan. Smasher counters with his own time dilation implant, mocking David. Rudimentary implant. The two trade blows at superhuman speed. David's skeleton-enhanced strikes dent Smasher's armor. Smasher's claws tear through David's plating. Smasher escalates. Shoulder pods fire a missile barrage, ejecting David, Lucy, and Faraday, who falls to his death. Rebecca attempts to slow Smasher in a final, defiant stand. He swats her aside, killing her instantly. Falco and Lucy attempt to escape. Smasher pursues, ripping David's cyberskeleton apart, piece by piece. The final moments are merciless. Smasher tears the anti-grav devices from David's exoskeleton, causing it to collapse under its own weight. Standing over a limbless David, Smasher remarks, "Had some fun after all," and executes him with a point-blank shot to the skull. Lucy tries a quick hack. Smasher's ice fries her deck. David dies, accepting his fate. Smasher victorious. His lack of cyberpsychosis allows him to use extreme chrome without breakdown, a direct contrast to David's tragic overload. The fight echoes the 2023 Tower raid. Smasher again survives, overwhelming odds, emerging as the last man standing. Yorinobu Arasaka's ascension to CEO of Arasaka Corporation in 2077 marks a pivotal turning point in Adam Smasher's long service to the family, transforming him from a shadowy enforcer operating out of Ebunike docks to the official head of corporate security. The sequence begins at Konpeki Plaza, Arasaka's opulent Night City hotel, where Saburo Arasaka arrives for a private meeting with his son Yorinobu. Smasher accompanies Yorinobu as personal bodyguard, a role he has filled for decades. The meeting turns deadly. Yorinobu strangles his father with his bare hands, a patricide motivated by decades of resentment over Saburo's iron control and the corporation's direction. Smasher's response is immediate, but incomplete. He eliminates witnesses V and Jackie Wells during their escape from the penthouse, pursuing them through service corridors and the hotel garage in a signature display of relentless efficiency. However, V and Jackie ultimately evade capture, stealing the Relic prototype in the process. This failure is relative. Yorinobu, now de facto leader, shields Smasher from blame, recognizing that the murder itself was the true objective. Yorinobu's formal ascension as CEO follows swiftly. Yorinobu consolidates power by eliminating rivals and promoting loyalists. Smasher receives the highest honor, appointment as head of Arasaka Security, overseeing all North American operations, counter-Edgerunner teams, and tower defense. This promotion aligns with Smasher's post-war trajectory. After surviving the 2023 nuke and operating from Ebunike for 5 decades, Smasher returns to tower guardianship, a symbolic full circle. Yorinobu values Smasher's loyalty and lethality above all. The promotion formalizes what was already fact. Smasher is Arasaka's ultimate weapon. The evidence is clear and cumulative. Smasher did not become a monster through Chrome. He was already one, and the Chrome merely equipped him. He exhibits no meaningful remorse, no loyalty beyond self-interest, no hesitation in inflicting pain. The army discharge, the freelance contracts, the willingness to accept collateral damage clauses, all point to the same conclusion. Smasher's sociopathy is innate, not acquired. This baseline is critical to understanding his later high-functioning status. Most cyberpsychos are victims of augmentation, ordinary people pushed beyond their limits by Chrome. Smasher is the inverse, an already broken mind given tools to express its breakage more efficiently. His Chrome does not erode his humanity, it equips the monster already present. Adam Smasher endures as Cyberpunk's most terrifying and resonant figure, not because of any single feat. Surviving the Arasaka Tower nuke, dismantling David Martinez, or confronting V in the game's finale, but because he embodies the genre's central, inescapable dialectic. The inexorable erosion of humanity by Chrome. From his pre-conversion sociopathy in New York slums, to his high-functioning cyberpsychosis as Arasaka's eternal enforcer. Smasher represents the logical endpoint of augmentation culture. He is the corporate monster, perfected. A sociopath whose violent impulses are not merely tolerated, but institutionalized, channeled through endless sanctioned killing. This synthesis draws together the threads of his chronology, pathology, and conflicts to reveal Smasher as the archetype of Cyberpunk's warning. Chrome does not liberate. it annihilates what remains of the self. Smasher's arc is defined by opposition. He stands as Chrome supremacy incarnate. 96% machine, 4% meat. A Full-Borg whose humanity was forfeit long before the Samson frame. Every event reinforces this. The Fourth Corporate War nukes survival. The Edgerunners annihilation. The 2077 finale. Chrome is Smasher's salvation. It equips the monster, rendering him indestructible. Yet he is forever defined by his antithesis, Morgan Blackhand, the meat over metal legend, whose ambiguous fate haunts Smasher. Blackhand represents resilient humanity, chromed just enough to compete, but never consumed. Smasher's obsession with this rivalry reveals the pathology beneath the chrome, a sociopath who resents the persistence of unaugmented will. The ambiguity of Blackhand's fate, nobody recovered. Pondsmith's teasers preserves the tension, ensuring Smasher's victories feel pyrrhic. Smasher wins battles. Blackhand wins the moral argument. Unlike David Martinez or typical max-tag targets, Smasher's sociopathy predates augmentation. Pre-Chrome EMP-0. Arasaka provides purpose. Sanctioned violence prevents indiscriminate frenzy. Cyberware amplifies, it does not create. In 2076, the Edgerunners confrontation reinforces this archetype. David Martinez, talented but fragile, overloads under the weight of his own ambition. Smasher does not. He matches David's Sandevistan, dismantles the cyberskeleton, and executes with cold efficiency. The fight is not a contest of equals. It is a demonstration of the inevitable. Chrome, without empathy, wins. David's tragedy is the cautionary tale. Smasher's victory is the warning. By 2077, Smasher's role as head of security under Yorinobu completes the circle. He returns to tower defense, an ironic echo of 2023, only to face V, whose relic-fueled fusion with Silverhand grants a temporary mimicry of Smasher's mental fortitude. V survives the confrontation not through superior chrome, but through a borrowed psyche, a fleeting high-functioning state that allows endurance where others would break. Smasher's defeat, in most endings, is improbable, but narratively necessary. The monster must fall to the hero. Yet the possibility of soul-killer copies remains. Smasher's construct awareness hints at digital persistence. Smasher endures because he is the genre's most honest monster. Cyberpunk warns that technology promises transcendence, but delivers alienation. Smasher's the proof. He is not a victim of Chrome. He is its triumph. He is not a tragic figure overwhelmed by augmentation. He is the one who sought it, embraced it, and used it to become what he always was. A sociopath with infinite tools for violence. The system does not break him. It rewards him. Arasaka does not fear him. It deploys him. Night City does not stop him. It fears him. In a setting full of broken people and broken machines, Smasher is the one who is neither broken nor redeemed. He is the endpoint of the Chrome Path. Humanity reduced to a biopod. Empathy to... yeah, right. And purpose to killing. He is the corporate monster perfected, the warning that when augmentation meets sociopathy, the result is not madness, but efficiency. The question is not whether Smasher will return, it is whether Night City can ever escape him. Hey Choom, I am Kazuliski, and I hope you found this Cyberpunk 2077 lore on Adam Smasher to be informative. Are you interested in more Cyberpunk content? Then be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you for chipping in.